And welcome back to my channel. Unless you're new here, and then just welcome. My name is Rusty, and this is my channel where I talk about my favorite movies, mostly horror, and we are going to continue on with the Dead Festival by moving on to the next film in the franchise, and that is Diary of the Dead. George A. Romero's Diary of the Dead. Now, Diary of the Dead was released in 2007. Directed and written by George A. Romero, starring Michelle Morgan, Joshua Close, and Shawn Roberts. Now, Shawn Roberts is one of the three main stars of this movie. Unlike Land of the Dead, in which he played Mike, and it was a small role. He got killed when Cholo, remember, was stopping for the liquor run. So he is a main star in this one, which I love because I'm a big Shawn Roberts fan, and it was good to see a lot more of him in this, and it was cool. He's a cool actor. I like him. So, for the little synopsis, and then we'll talk about the film. This movie begins with a video of a newscast, a news report, in which, very common today, you see there's been a family annihilator take out his family, and the news lady is there doing the report when the bodies reanimate and come after her, kill her on film. And then it flashes to a college campus where we see Jason and Tony and his friends, and they're trying to film a horror movie, a little college horror movie for his contribution, his thesis for the class. He's going to make a horror movie. So we see them trying to film that, and that's what they're doing as this occurs. So when the news starts coming through and somebody hears the report, they don't believe it at first. It's all crazy. It doesn't make any sense. And they start seeing more and more reports, and they're like, well, there can't be 6 fake reports. I mean, this is 6 different, so all of these incidents are being reported by the news, and then you have all these people saying, oh no, it's nothing. So they all start getting kind of scared, and one of them jumps in a car with his girlfriend, and they leave, but he says, y'all can come to my place if y'all want to. But they decide, no, they're going to all go back to the dorm because Jason needs to get his girlfriend, Deborah. So they go back to the dorm. You have Deborah and Mary, Tony, Jason, Elliot, Gordo, and Tracy. And they all head out in an RV coming up with a plan. Well, what are we going to do? So they decide that they're going to go home. That they're going to try to make it to Deborah's home because she wants to see her mom and her dad and her little brother. So they start doing that, and you have to remember this is a found footage movie, but it's not found footage. You get to watch the movie as the found footage is filmed. So this movie is filmed entirely from a first-person view of the camera. And I like that genre. I'm a big fan, of Friend Request and, Dark Web and all of those. I like this genre. I like found footage, and I like webcam, the web genre. So it was interesting, and it was a little shocking at first. It took me a minute to get used to this format from George Romero, but it didn't take long, and I was like really comfortable with it, and I was really into it. As long as going into watching this that it's a found footage movie, it shouldn't shock your senses. So as they're riding down the road, talking about all this, still kind of not quite believing it, they run into a car wreck where they see state troopers, and they actually see Zeds. And the state trooper Zed tries to attack the RV. Now they know it's for real. This scares them even more. They take off, get way on down the road, and they have to stop and process and think about it. And that girl Mary, she's so upset about it. She goes out there, she gets kind of away from them. And the next thing you know, at first I thought she was shot, but it turns out she did it to herself. Yeah, she shot herself. And it's like, okay, wow, all right. So they, of course, are very upset about that, and we've got to go to a hospital because she's still alive. So they try to take her to they do take her to a hospital. Nobody's there, of course. It's empty when all of a sudden they do run into a couple of zombie staff, Zed staff members and patients, a couple patients and a couple of staff members who've all turned. So this freaks them out. They have to do some pew-pewing, and then Gordo gets bit. But now you have to remember, they don't know what that means, getting bit. It shouldn't mean anything. You just got bit, right? It's not like you got your head cut off or anything. So they don't really understand that it's screwed, you know what I mean? So they take off. They end up, Mary turns and they end up taking her out. And then, God, don't you hate trying to talk on YouTube? I mean, you have to worry about every other word you say. It's like really annoying. But anyway, because it makes you sound like you don't know what you're saying when actually there's this little processor in your mind going, can you say that? Don't say that on YouTube. Or it's fucked up. I can't stand this fucking place, to be honest, quite honest with you. But, or what it's become. So they go to bury Mary, and Gordo dies, and they're all kind of freaked out, but he just got a little bite. Why would that kill him? And that's when they start coming up, well, you do know that that's probably how it spread. That's probably what's going to happen. And oh gosh, he's going to do what happened to Mary, right? Because Mary was their understanding of what getting bit or dying can mean. Now, Tracy, of course, she begs them not to pew-pew his dead body because it might not be true, and she doesn't want to do that. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that to your boyfriend Eva, So they agree to all go sit at the RV while she sits out there with his body, and if he tries to get up, she, being his girlfriend, is the one that's going to take him out. And that's exactly what happens, and she does. So they end up taking off again, now minus Gordo, and Mary. And the RV ends up breaking down. And I think this was probably like the only humor in the movie, was them stopping at the Amish farm, and the Amish guy who is mute and like has to write on a board. So there was some comedy there in that part of it. He agrees to help them fix the RV because Deborah's a mechanic. It's like, well, I guess she's Mona Lisa Vito from My Cousin Vinny, right? So she gets on there and she's like, I can take care of this. So she's got to like replace the fuel valve and all that kind of stuff in the RV. So the horde, of course, starts massing around the barn, and they end up getting it fixed, fighting off the horde. It's sad though that the Amish farmer, he like gets it right before, as he's trying to get in the RV, so he doesn't quite make it. But they all end up taking off again. It's at this point they run into, and George was bad about this. Romero was bad about not giving people names. Like a lot of his characters in his movie, there's like in Land of the Dead, there's Pretty Boy, and in Survival of the Dead, the character is just in the credits. His name is Boy, even though he is a major star of the movie. But he doesn't even have a name. He's just Boy. And there was another one in Survival too, and that was Tomboy. She didn't have a name either. She was Tomboy. So George had like, I don't know if he had a problem like coming up with character names or what, but he just did that. So um, here they are. They run into Stranger. His name in the credits and is never said in the, and his name is never mentioned in the movie despite these huge long scenes with him. It's like, does not anybody introduce themselves anymore? And in the credits, he's listed as Stranger. So they run into Stranger and his gang, and it scares them at first, but he ends up like taking them back to their safe house, and a big warehouse full of stuff, and pretty cool stuff that goes on there. And Jason gets a chance because they've got power and connected, so he gets a chance to upload the footage that he has filmed so far, and notices that like within a couple of minutes of posting it, it like had 75,000 views like that, within just a few minutes. And they also see all the other news reports and realize that the mainstream media is playing all of this off. And this makes him feel even more important about filming this stuff, uploading this stuff, to get it out there to people that this is real and to protect yourself, right? Because the mainstream media is like lying about it and playing it, downplaying it, just like they did in The Stand, and just like, they do today with some other issues. So, that was all very interesting, and they sort of have a face-off with them, but they actually save a couple of the people there. Deborah does, so she demands, that they help them. So she asks for gas and some supplies, and there's a little face-off between Stranger and Deborah, and she ends up, he gives in, and he gives them their supplies, and they take off. And then they end up running across some military guys who stop them in the road, and then comes on board and steals all their stuff. He leaves them their weapons, but he steals all the supplies. He leaves them the gas in the RV and their weapons, because they've got plenty of their own, and then steals their supplies. Now, this scene right here with that guy is the star of Survival of the Dead. And so, yeah, that was it's like really interesting the way those two movies hook into each other, because that scene in this movie is actually a scene in Survival of the Dead, because that guy, Sarge, is the star. Once again, no names. His name is Sarge. So he's the star of Survival of the Dead. So that's when we get to see him. Is he stops and he steals their supplies, him and his little gang. So now that they've got no supplies, they decide to go to the friend that had left, or they make it to Deborah's house and they all go in. So I got ahead of myself for a second. They manage to make it to Deborah's house. They all go in, and it's a pretty scary scene. But she finds her mom eating her dad, and then her little brother attacks her. And that little boy scared the shit out of me. I don't know if I got something about that. It's the same way Sick Boy gave me a panic attack, and it took me 3 tries to watch it. But that was a really ugly scene, because I'll tell you what, that who's the professor? That professor is slick with the crossbow, with the bow thing, because he nails him through the forehead to the wall, and that was hard to see, because this is a little kid, so that was fucked up. That was a really good scene. So he kills the little bro with a shotgun to the head. The parents are turned as well, and they're eating each other. So they all take them out and leave, where they then run into those mercenaries. So I got those 2 scenes just switch them. So that's when they then run into the mercenaries who take all of their supplies. They then decide, well, what can we do now? We've got no supplies. Well, we can go to Ridley's house. Now, Ridley was the guy at the college during the filming who got in the car and left with his girlfriend. Now, he's a super rich kid, so it's like a fucking mansion, you know? So they get there to Ridley's house, and he scares the crap out of them, and me too as a viewer, with a jump scare. And they notice, you know, they all try to settle down. Oh, I know what it was that scared them. They were in the library, like wondering where everybody was, and all of a sudden one of the bookcases moved and Ridley jumped out and scared the crap out of everybody, because it turns out that, like Jodie Foster in that movie, that's a safe room, a panic room. So he shows them the panic room, and that was really neat. Behind the behind, it was like a secret room behind the bookshelf in the library. So that's a good place to put it, right? And that was really neat. So they start noticing, though, that Riley's acting like really weird. He's just, and you can tell it too. You're like, the dude's acting like something's not quite right. So they end up like questioning about that. Like, where is she? Because back when they were in that warehouse with Stranger and his gang, they had actually, Jason had talked to them, and her and him were on camera talking to him. So they're like, where is she? And he acts even more weird, and where's your parents? And he ends up like breaking down and taking them to them, and he's basically got them in the pool. They're like submerged in the pool, like the pool room is locked, so he's like put all their bodies in the pool room, and they like, I guess, reanimated in the pool room. So they're all in the bottom of the pool, like standing in underwater. And yeah, so obviously that had messed up his mind. So let's see here, before Tracy freaks out, and she like decides that I'm just going back to Texas. So she takes the RV and trips out and leaves. She leaves with the RV. Ridley ends up getting Elliot, which is a pretty horrible thing, because one of the things that they also noticed when he was acting so weird and then he showed them the bodies was, one of them mentioned, did you see his wrist? He like had a bandage on it and it looked like it was all bloody and stuff. I think he got bit, and that's when like him and Tracy, he like got after Tracy when he turned and chased her all around the woods, and she ended up like kicking his ass, and that's when she got in the RV and said, I'm out of here. I'm going back to Texas. I'm going back to San Antone, So she left, and they try to talk Jason and everybody into going into the panic room, because they're like, there's lots of supplies. We can just go into the panic room and wait this thing out, right? Because we can see everything on the CCTV, and nobody can get in. It's a panic room, for God's sake. So we can just stay in there and only come out when it's safe and just wait all of this out. But no. Jason doesn't want to do that, because he is the documentary filmmaker now. So he has to continue filming all of this. And there's Zed's coming, creeping around the house. So Ridley, of course, was still alive after Tracy left. He ended up getting Elliot, which was fucked up. That was a fucked up scene. And that's when Deborah so who do you have left now? You have Tony and Deborah and Professor Andrew, and Jason. That's all that's left. So the four of them are left after Ridley killed Elliot. So because he refuses to go in, it delays long enough. The professor comes out and says, "Oh my God, I saw what happened to Ridley. I saw what happened to Elliot. Ridley's still in the house." They all then really start trying to get into the panic room. And Jason finally agrees, but it's too late because, Ridley jumps him. And they take Ridley out, but now he's like bit. So he hands the camera to Deborah, who is going to have to finish. And of course, she shoots him, and that was a messed up scene right there. So she states that she's going to finish the film. The horde surrounds the mansion, and they, who, Professor Andrew, Deborah, and Tony, they're the only three left now. They lock themselves in the panic room, and then we have an exit scene where, they're looking at the video and all, and they're like, "Are we worth saving? You tell me." So once again, George A. Romero puts that question into the movie, all the way back to Night of the Living Dead, right? That question is in every movie. Who's the monster? Are we or are they? And in this one, the question was, are we worth saving? You tell me. I gave this an 8 out of 10. I am a big fanboy of this movie because I do like found footage. I do like the direction he took this in. And although I was a little, if you remember, I'm watching these movies, right? And then all of a sudden you get a found footage one. It took me like 10 minutes at the beginning to like go to like readjust my way of watching it. And but like I said, it didn't take but about 10 minutes to settle in. And then I think what I did was, like 10 minutes I was in a little shell shock. And then I stopped it and I just started the movie over and was like, okay, I'm watching it from the right angle now and from the right frame of mind. And, cause I didn't know it was a found footage movie. And, I love this movie. It'll probably be number 4 on my list. I'm a big fanboy of this movie. Compared to, I don't think people like it near as much as I do. It's got a 5.5 on Diary of the Dead. On International Movie Database. So I don't think it's hated like some of the others, but I don't think it's as big a fan. And it doesn't beat Land of the Dead, and it doesn't beat Dawn of the Dead remake, and it doesn't beat Night of the Living Dead 1990, but it definitely beats Day of the Dead 85, and it definitely beats Survival, and it definitely probably, yeah. Anyway, I'm not going to do my ranking right now. You'll have to wait for that. As to the special features, the special features are fantastic on this video. On this film. This DVD has some excellent special features in it. One of them is called Character Confessions, because at the end of this movie, one of the last things that you've seen before they ask that question, are we worth saving, is you saw Jason sit in front of the camera and talk about, it was like 5 minutes, or 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes, and he talks about why he's doing this and all, so it's sort of like a character confession. Well, all of them did that, and that was extremely cool to see. Tracy did it. So there's a special feature on here called Character Confessions, and just like that scene from the movie where Jason sits in front of the camera, he got his other friends to do it as well. So you get to see Deborah talk about things. You get to see Tony and Tracy and Elliot. So it's 4 of them. Yeah, you get to see Elliot, Tony, Tracy, and Deborah. And it adds so much more to the experience of the movie to listen to them talk, where they came from, what they were doing, what they think about all this shit. Elliot's was really impactful. So yeah, that's just a really cool special feature. I'm glad that they have that on this movie. On this movie. The other one that was pretty cool was, of course, the interview. The interview with George A. Romero was extremely cool on this thing because you get to hear a lot of his talking about what I had said earlier in the last one about why he loved the experience of doing Land of the Dead with the big budget and the big name actors and stuff. But that this was his thing. And he talked, and you could see the love all over his face for this movie. He talked about how this movie was his favorite next to Night of the Living Dead. And this movie is the most like Night of the Living Dead, which is true. This movie is at the beginning of the outbreak. You see the beginning of the outbreak. These people don't know what's going on, whereas all of the other movies are while it's going on and everybody already knows, and we're seeing the aftermath. Well, Diary of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead are the beginnings. And so he talked about how being an independent film, that being the lower budget, that he didn't have anyone telling him what to do, anyone telling him he couldn't do this or couldn't do that. He could change on a dime, and it was just a lot more fun for him. The movies before Land of the Dead and the movies after Land of the Dead, that he enjoyed the filmmaking process outside of a big budget studio outing, but that he still loved Land of the Dead. So that was a really interesting insights, and he talks a lot about it. There's one more special feature that I really got a kick out of, and that is the Easter eggs in this movie. It's called voice cameos, and that kind of blew my mind because they let you hear the voice cameos, and I had no idea. When I was listening to them, I remembered those scenes from the movie, and that is, and all of the voice cameos were recorded on the phone. Like, he called them on the phone and asked them would they be in his movie, and if they would read the lines on the phone and with his recording equipment, and that they would be in the movie. And of course they all agreed to be in a George A. Romero movie, have a voice cameo. And one of them was Simon Pegg. And so you got to hear George Romero talking with him on the phone and then saying, okay, are you ready? Let's do it. And then you remembered those lines from the movie. He was the newscaster, the British newscaster, who was, you heard several times in the movie. That's Simon Pegg. Guillermo del Toro, you got to hear him talk with him on the phone, and then he read his lines, and oh gosh, I can't remember who he was, but you definitely remembered him during the movie, and it was like, wow, I had no idea that was Guillermo del Toro, in the movie, and I had no idea that was Simon Pegg. And then the biggest one is there's a preacher, because they're like listening to the radio, and there's this preacher who is screaming hell, fire, and brimstone, like, you brought this upon yourselves, get down on your fucking knees, and stuff like that. It turns out that's fucking Stephen King, right? So you get to hear George talking with Stephen on the phone, and Stephen's, you know how Stephen's voice is. So you get to hear him talking on the phone and getting into character to play this raging, psychotic preacher screaming at everybody to get on their knees. And that was really cool because during watching the movie, I had no idea who, I didn't know that. So you watch this special feature and you find out that the newscaster was Simon Pegg, and that crazy preacher was Stephen King, and the other guy that was in several scenes, the voice on the radio, was Guillermo del Toro. And I'm like, wow, that was cool. Now, he does claim he did, George A. Romero loved to fuck with you. So he put it at the bottom, after that special feature is over and you got to hear the conversations and you got to hear them actually reading their lines, and then George, saying, cut, that was perfect. That was the one we'll keep, he says at the bottom, it's like, there are others, but you'll just have to figure them out yourself. So I don't know. I'm gonna do it. You probably have to go to Google, and like ask them, who are all the voice cameos on there, because I am interested to know. But hearing Simon Pegg, Guillermo del Toro, and Stephen King film their lines and talk with George Romero on the phone was really cool. So this movie's got there's really cool special features. I do love this movie. This movie is really, really good. I really enjoy the characters. I love seeing, I love seeing Shawn Roberts in it. All the characters were really cool. No bad acting. The makeup in this movie is great. As a matter of fact, the only movie that has bad makeup is Day of the Dead, 85. All of the rest of them I love the makeup in all of them. I think zombie makeup is really good in all of them except for Day of the Dead 85, which no need in me re-ranting about that. You can go watch it. But so yeah, that was Diary of the Dead. I really love this. It'll probably be number 4 on my list as my favorite. I love Land of the Dead. I love Diary of the Dead. And so we'll be moving on to Survival next. Love you, miss you. Bye-bye. Always remember and never forget, you are a very, 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 very special person. Don't let anyone ever tell you anything different. If they do, they're just lying to you. You know how much of a liar people are. So, yeah, love yourself. You're great. Go look in the mirror right now. Go do it. Go look in the mirror right now and go, I'm a very special person. And this is not therapy. I really mean it. Bye.